Welcome to Wild on 6TV, the Oxford Channel. I'm Sasha Norris, and today I'm at Ardley Quarry, 10 miles north of Oxford, where we're on the hunt for prehistoric Oxfordshire. And I'm joined by Philip Powell from the Oxford University Museum. Hi Philip.
Morning, Sasha.
And I've just been running in the tracks of a dinosaur laid down 170 million years ago, haven't I?
That's about right. 167 had been nearer, but we won't quibble over a day or two. Yes, here they are. Very large pothole-like things. In fact, you might think they were potholes, except we've got a whole trackway of them here. In fact, we've got several trackways. They go sometimes for 200 or more meters across this flat, desert-looking floor here. It's actually the lithified, or fossilized, if you like, petrified remains of a Jurassic mudflat. The land here 167 million years ago was out to the southeast there towards London. We had land covered with forest in which the dinosaurs lived. But out this way towards the Cotswolds, the sea shelved very shallowly out for miles and miles and miles out to sea.
So really, where we're standing now, it's right in the heart of England and just north of Oxford, would have been a shallow sea.
It was, yes. Right through the Jurassic period, from about 200 million years ago, right up to the end of the Jurassic at 135 million years or so. Most of southern England was mostly underwater, under seawater of varying depth. At this particular time, it was extremely shallow. And in fact, at this date, it was so shallow that one afternoon it was a sandbank or mudflat on which these dinosaurs trudged off, leaving these huge footprints here.
Now, they are huge, aren't they? And so a dinosaur was trundling across the sandy plain, the seabed, and put its foot down one after another and lay these huge... I mean, how big are they? They're about almost a metre long, aren't they?
Yes, about a metre long. This kind of footprint was made by dinosaurs with large elephant-like legs. I brought a picture of one along.
Oh, brilliant.
See, we think it is, I mean, that's a generalised sauropod dinosaur with four big elephant-like feet.
Cetiosaurus.
Cetiosaurus. This is first named from dinosaurs discovered here in Oxfordshire anyway, some of the first dinosaurs in the world. And we have Cetiosaurus bones from rocks of this very age, from Kirtlington, which is just a little way south, Enslow Bridge and so on.
Just outside Oxford, in fact.
Exactly, yes.
So they're dinosaur bones. And are there dinosaur bones all over Oxfordshire?
Yes.
There are.
Because you see, as I was explaining, this was very shallow sea. This was more or less the edge of the sea here. And just over to the southeast there, we had land covered with forest, full of these dinosaurs. And so...
There were dinosaurs all over Oxfordshire?
Absolutely, yes.
All different kinds of dinosaurs? I mean, they're kind of the predatory big dinosaurs and the sort of things that Jurassic Park's made of? Is that...
In fact, not far away, about 100 yards away, there is the trackway of one of these very large meat-eating dinosaurs. Again, named from bones originally found in Oxford. There's a sort of kiddie picture of the thing.
Megalosaurus?
Yes. This one walks on two legs, you see, and has bird-like feet.
What we ought to say is that this is now, you can see all the machinery and hear it, an active quarry.
It's being quarried for, the stone is being quarried away for rough fill, for roadways and aggregate, that sort of thing. What's more valuable, of course, is the hole that's left afterwards, which is used for dumping domestic waste.
Landfill.
Landfill, as you can see over there.
Okay, so we're going to go over here and find our carnivorous dinosaur.
Right, these are the footprints, or this is a footprint of the carnivorous dinosaur, the megalosaur-like thing. You can see got the central toe and then the outer toe, just like some very large chicken.
And this was a two-legged carnivorous dinosaur. I mean, it didn't look much like a bird, did it? We've seen a picture of it. It was kind of...
Well, if you put feathers on it, it would look rather like a bird. Or
Right.
if you took the feathers off a bird, it would look rather like a dinosaur.
a
whichever
very
way
big bird.
No, I mean, if you take the old English game cockerel or something and took all its feathers off, it would look just like a dinosaur reconstruction.
Right, a small... But this animal presumably was massive. I mean,
This is large. This is
how tall would it have been?
25 to 30 feet long,
Right.
over 6 feet high at the hip.
And would it have
keeps
been
it
fast?
bird-like. Well, you can calculate the speed of these things from the trackways if you know the distance apart of the feet, the stride length, and the hip height of the animal.
Right.
If you're good at maths, which I'm not, you can do the substitute in the formula and come up with a speed. And actually, it's very slow. That doesn't mean to say it couldn't go 20 miles an hour or so, but just here, the animal's walking about 3 miles an hour.
3 miles an hour, so
Yeah.
it would have been doom, doom,
Yes.
doom.
It's just trudging
Rather
along, looking around. Actually, now buried over there under the landfill, part of the trackway does show that the animal did start to run. The
Oh,
feet
okay.
much farther apart and much closer to the midline.
And we know this despite the fact that this happened 167 million years ago. Louis, take your ball
Well,
away.
that's the interesting thing about footprints. They're even more evocative, I think, than actual bones.
Yeah.
Because here we have direct evidence of an individual animal doing something.
Going about its daily life.
Yeah.
And as it was walking across this mud flat, it would have been walking on other prehistoric creatures, which were perhaps less dramatic, but equally evident here. There's evidence, isn't there, of shellfish?
Well, if we
I've got one in my pocket actually that you gave me. Here's one you gave me earlier.
we
Okay.
get what it's walking on is a mud flat, which a week or two before was sea floor. You see, we were very shallow here.
A
as
week
I
or
was
two before
explaining.
the dinosaur walked there. Yeah,
Yeah,
not before now.
months or
Obviously.
something. No. And you can see how mottled it is in colour. This is the blue and the black. This is because sea animals that lived in the mud are mixing different layers of mud. And the ones we found earlier, which I think you've
Here,
got
I've
there,
got one
yes.
here.
Here's a bivalve shellfish, like a cockle or a mussel.
Put it in there and just wash it
Okay. These are the things that were living.
So like a shellfish we might find today by the seaside, isn't it?
Absolutely,
You can see very
yes,
clearly.
yes.
But that obviously, that's not shell, is it? That's actual stone. That's
right,
what
yes.
a fossil is.
It's a natural cast of the thing.
Yeah, it's been filled with mud and then hardened
yeah.
over time
That's right.
and turned into a fossil.
Yes. So all the dinosaur footprints here are equally sharp. They were all made about the same time. So I reckon it wasn't a mud flat for very long. It was just kind of Tuesday afternoon or something, and they all walked across.
Right.
And then very shortly afterwards, say Wednesday morning, some storm brought back mud all over here, flooded all this and preserved the footprints for us.
Because obviously, I was asking you earlier, because when I walk on a mud flat, the mud sort of covers over my footprint afterwards, so you can't see it. But obviously, this footprint has stayed. The indentation when it trod down has stayed.
Well, it all depends on the actual consistency of the mud, doesn't it?
Right.
And these were made in a rather warmer climate than we're experiencing today. So as the footprints were formed, they were hardening in the sun.
So
And
thick,
it was
oozy mud,
it
and
was a
then
good
the sun
thick-
was hardening it.
a good thick mud, yes.
Right.
Which,
And then they were
and these are heavy animals. I mean, we're talking about a ton or two, and probably
a bit heavier than us then.
yeah, heavier than elephants. So they're making a good impression.
Making a good impression. Philip! What are you doing?
What am I doing?
Yeah!
I'm admiring these beautiful pools full of life and the lovely flowers, the thistles,
They
white
are amazing
campion,
flowers, aren't they? They've just taken over.
red campion.
But, I mean, here, I was just quite... Do you think we can do a reconstruction of the dinosaurs' footprints? Because we were talking about the consistency of the mud and how it had to be thick mud, and then I was me and Louis were walking through here. Do you think that's what it might have been like, Philip?
Yes, I suppose so. Sun cracks beginning, and although we don't see sun
coming.
cracks in the bed. But,
Do you think these footprints might one day be preserved, or?
I don't think so, because it's very unlikely that they'll be baked by the sun,
Right.
and then overwhelmed by another flood from the sea.
Right, we were going to look at some amazing fossils.
I can show you that this is
Yeah.
this is a marine mud. It's full of sea creatures which we can pick out when we haven't got the dog standing on top
Don't
of
mind
it.
out. Go on.
And and here, for instance, is one. Here's the spine of a sea urchin,
So similar period during the Jurassic.
and here's tiny little oyster. But here are the ones I got earlier. Here are the oysters, you see. Lots and lots of them.
So those are oysters that lived here and would have lived in this mud, in the sea mud,
They lived at this time.
170 million years ago.
Yep.
And these are gorgeous. These are little.
These are sea
urchins.
urchins. Yes. These are what the spines belong to. You see.
Oh, I see.
But they fall apart very quickly after death. The fact that these are whole means that this whole lot was swept in. The sea urchins were overwhelmed by the mud, which buried the dinosaur footprint.
Amazing. And you're gonna.
And these beautiful things, these are lamp shells or brachiopods.
Oh yes. And you can still see the rings on those.
Yeah, growth lines.
Striations. Growth lines.
And the other thing that were floating around at this time are crocodiles. There's a little crocodile tooth. Yeah.
160 million years
168 million years ago.
ago. Well, you're going to take us to another place in Oxfordshire now, aren't you?
Right, we can go and look at a completely contrasting environment. This is very shallow water, as you see, and we can go to a rather more deep water environment now with open sea creatures like ammonites and big sea monsters.
Big sea monsters. Okay, well join us in the second half of Wild when we'll be in search of the big sea monsters. Where are we going?
Cassington.
Cassington, right. Who would have thought it?
Just drop that stuff in.
Alright, we're going to take these back as well with us, haven't we?
Better next spring when the frost has split it up a bit.
Let's have a go?
So,
Just have a whack, do you?
yeah, just back it.
Is this what it means to be a fossil hunter?
Well, really, it's better just to walk around and look.
It's not sort of the first place you think to come to look for ancient wildlife, is it? It's an industrial scar, this, isn't it?
Well,
We're-
it's an opening into the Earth's surface, and here we have. Well, you've got two kinds of rocks here. There's this orange gravel here, which was laid down by the river Thames about 35,000 years ago, when it was a much stronger river. As you can see, it's moving boulders of all kinds. But its bed at the time is what we're actually standing on. This dark blue clay, which is ever so much more ancient. This is something like 160 or 162 million years ago, a bit younger than what we saw at Ardley.
And the red, or the orange sand that you described there, is, did you say 35 million? 35,000?
Yes.
Years ago.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Very recent, and the kind of animals that were living in it and the kind of fossils you can find in it are remains of mammoths. This is a mammoth tooth. This is the upper tooth of a mammoth. It comes up here somewhere in the jaw.
Right.
There's the grinding surface,
Okay.
and this is all yet to come into use. So as the front of the tooth wears down, this moves down the jaw until the whole thing is wearing.
Okay.
So,
And this was from a mammoth
yeah,
that would have been roaming around in this area in
Yeah.
Cassington,
yeah,
just outside Oxford,
yes,
about 35,000 years ago.
yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And
Now, go on.
go on. What have we got over here? It's very exciting. We've got.
Well, in this blue stuff, we've got. It might look like the blue stuff at Ardley, but actually, it's a much deeper. It's much finer grained, really clay the stuff.
You're eating it.
I'm grinding it between my teeth. There are no...
Well, is that necessary as a fossil hunter? Should I?
Well, it's necessary as a geologist. There's no grit in it, is there? It's
No,
clay.
it's very smooth.
It's fine clay. So that means it was deposited far from the land, you see. And it's full of...
Right, so it's very water, it's carried by water, is that what you're saying?
This is laid down in the sea.
Right.
Millions of years before the river.
Okay. Right, so you're seeing two very different ages going on.
That's it.
Right in
So
front
this
of
is a
us.
sea bottom, that's a river bottom.
Okay, so the mammoth would have been wandering around on the land, presumably next to the river,
Yes.
when it was carrying along these boulders
Yes.
and when it was laying down this orangey stone.
Yeah, and these are preserved because they're very solid and durable, you see.
Right. Okay. And are some fossils just purely made up of minerals, of stones that have laid down in the same structure and shape as the original animal?
They're preserved in a whole variety of ways. Here, I've just picked this up. Honestly, it's not from the museum. I've just picked this up now. This is very solid calcite, calcium carbonate.
Right.
And it's broken, but it would have been a bullet-shaped thing belonging to an animal very much like a modern squid. And that presumably was not as solid as that in life, but it certainly was made of this material in life. The animal itself lived in another rather flimsy shell, fitting into that conical hole there.
Right.
And then it sat in the top there with its tentacles hanging out and big beady eyes and beak, just like a modern squid.
And this would have lived in the very ancient sea, that this clay is the sea bed of, is that right?
That's exactly right, yes. A little way farther along, in a pit that's now worked out, I pulled out a 15-foot big reptile.
Did you?
About 5 years ago, which is on view in the University Museum, along with all the dinosaurs we were talking about this morning.
And
sorry, go on.
Well, there's bits of animals lying around all over the place. There's one over here, isn't there?
Well,
Should we
yes,
just have a quick...
along with this.
Yeah. Have a quick look. This is gorgeous. This is the remains of an ammonite.
Yeah, and you can see this isn't brought from the museum. It's too large, so this is genuinely lying here.
It's lying here.
It's another creature of the open sea, like this belemnite. This has a coiled shell, but it belongs to the same group as octopuses and squids and things as this does.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Beautiful. And what's going to happen to it?
This it'll be just left here probably.
Quarried?
No. All the quarry company are interested in is the gravel.
Right.
The clay is merely dug because it provides drainage channels.
How unusual is it to find places like this where you can see such ancient and exquisite
Well, in
creatures?
Oxfordshire, not at all, because Oxfordshire is the bottom of old sea bottoms, you see, and it's full. It was a warm, pleasant, equable time, so there was a great variety and great abundance of a variety of sea creatures, and their remains are in the rocks of Oxfordshire. So wherever you dig a hole, almost, there are fossils. I mean, we can go into the city and I can show you them in the walls and the paths and just everywhere.
This is what we're going to do now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right in the heart of Oxford.
The thing is just to walk around and look at you'll find them in the limestone, this limestone band. So the thing is just walk along where they've dug it out and see.
Scott, are you going to find a fossil or what?
I hope so.
It's on there.
It's amazing. Look, just pull a rock and see what you can find. My first fossil.
All over the place they are.
All over the place, apparently. According to Philip, this is coral down here.
Hello, Sasha.
What have we got there?
Well, I was really looking at this here. There's a large piece of the coral. It's upside down, of course, but it's a massive coral. In life, it was growing that way, and you can see the coral lights. They're called the coral skeleton on which the little jelly-like animal sits on the top, and fishes bits out of the seawater with its tentacles, but they build up these massive skeletons with calcium carbonate.
So this is a very old animal that's been incorporated into the wall here in Christchurch Meadow along Dead Man's Walk.
Yep.
And every time you look at this wall, you see something else that was once alive.
Sure. I
And
mean, if you look down here, you see they're broken open, but these are worm tubes, worms that made a calcareous tube to live in. Again, they have beautiful, almost palm tree-like structure. They come out and spread their feathery tentacles and fish bits out of the seawater. And what else have we got? Well, here are bits of oyster shells.
Right.
I don't know if you can make it out, but you see that round thing there?
Yes.
That was the branch of in this case, a loosely branching coral. And this is the remains of a coral too. But you can see this anywhere in Oxford where the old walls are built with stone from Headington.
I see.
And Cumnor, because around there you have these rocks which represent this period of time about 160 million years ago when this area was all at the bottom of a very shallow warm sea, and here and there amongst the lime sandbanks corals began to flourish. Indeed, these rocks are called the corallian beds.
Are the very old buildings in particular made of this local stone, and some of the newer buildings from stone from further afield? Or?
Well, yes, this stuff was readily available. It was lying on the fields in small quarries on the hills around the city, so it was easily brought here. But for as the colleges began to build finer buildings, they needed better quality stone. They needed freestone. You see how yes,
new
that's right.
college and
yeah, you need a stone which is more homogeneous. This is very irregular, as you can see.
With all the different animals that lived in it.
This represents a time of about 160 million years ago.
Right.
The path here is made of material which was deposited about 115 million years ago. And
it wasn't deposited here, was it?
Oh no, this material is brought from Farringdon. Well, here's a little cup sponge.
It's fairly... That's a little sponge, is it?
It's a little cup sponge. I brought one with me. Well, I brought one with me from the museum.
Can you see that? Yeah.
It's a small version of that.
So these are ones. Where did you pick these up from?
Oh, this one came from the museum. That's from Farringdon. And
Right.
there's a really fine.
You've got these in frozen. That's
cup
beautiful,
sponge.
isn't it?
But
So that's a sponge. Does it live up like that way up?
yes, it's
Sitting on the
cup-shaped. That's right.
sea floor.
What it's doing again, it's sieving seawater. The animals draw water into the skeleton and then
Push it out.
through. You can see the pores here, the
They
little
filter feed.
canals. Yeah, they filter
You
feed.
take out the tiny particles and eat them.
Yeah.
Now, presumably, is it the case that once you start looking in any sort of building material or pathing material, that you start to see fossils everywhere?
Wherever you look, you might find fossils. I mean, obviously not in granite or slate or something like that.
Right.
But certainly in Oxfordshire, where you have rocks that were laid down in warm, shallow sea, which was rich in marine life, you can expect to find fossils.
Right. But I mean, if I walked, for example, my paths, in my garden, if I put down some shingle and things, should I be looking for evidence of living creatures there?
Certainly. School children are always bringing to the museum remains of belemnites, which they
Right.
pick out of gravel paths at home. It started off many a child's interest in fossils and paleontology.
And there must be, I mean, the dinosaur footprints we saw earlier, and indeed this path and this wall, the fossils have been uncovered because of human activity, haven't they? Because
That's right.
we've dug up and we've looked in the earth. And
That's
there
right.
may be many more, but we may never find them.
Well, they're there for future generations. We don't want to find it all at once, do we?
No, we don't, and I guess we quite like the green as well. But.
Oh,
Well, there are some more fossils, aren't there, in a very unusual place where you wouldn't really expect to be fossil hunting. Should we?
all right.
Should we
Just
go
to
and-
show that even the shoppers don't have to come out this far to find fossils. I'll show you.
Let's go. So we're now in the Clarendon Centre, in the centre of Oxford town, and Philip's going to convince us this is a good place to fossil hunt. And you've already done it because we've only just stepped over the threshold and there's something like
It's This is the wall of a large cup sponge, just like the ones from Farringdon, you see? So if you slice that across and polished it, that's what you'd get.
And where are these from? When was this laid down in this?
This is towards the end of the Jurassic period again, about 150 million years ago, just a little over 150 million. At the same time as in this country, thick clay was being deposited over most of the region.
Is that one there?
There's a bit of another one, yes. Yep.
Okay, and you say it was for centenary, so this stone has been brought into the Clarendon Centre from Germany.
Yeah. It's from near Eichstätt, Bavaria.
I think that might be referring to Ozzy. Okay, well we better go because the dogs have been expelled.
That's a shame because there's some nice fossils.
There's some more fossils. Well, perhaps we could talk to the. Perhaps we'll try and sort it out. Come on.